What about men who cry? Like, are we turned off by that? I can't say for all the women on the planet, but for me personally, I'm not turned off by a man who cries. In fact, I think that a man who is vulnerable with you, that's so flattering. That's a sign that this guy trusts you, he wants to get closer to you, he feels comfortable with you, and he finds you important enough to share personal matters of his life with you. And what's more personal than sharing our suffering, our problems, what's bothering us? But I do understand that many men have trouble being vulnerable. Not just men, but women also. If we've been through a bad relationship or trauma or someone like messed up with our feelings or whatnot, it's quite natural that we will want to build up this wall to protect ourselves, and we will have a hard time to be vulnerable with people and to open up and to allow people to love us. It's perhaps done unconsciously, but somehow we feel like we're going to protect ourselves. We will not get hurt again, so we will not be vulnerable. We will not share our feelings with anyone. And I've come across a couple of people who seem to be, I don't blame them, but they seem to really have a hard time being vulnerable, and they overthink, and they just, for them, it's just about the rational, pragmatic part of things. And they are willing to go to any length just to protect themselves and to not suffer, to not take that risk of giving, like we say, giving your heart to someone, putting your heart in the hands of someone, because they might do anything with it. What about I myself? Have I been like that? Well, I am a very romantic person who falls in love often. I cannot count the number of times I thought I was in love, anyways, but I also cannot count the amount of times I got my heart broken. But what I really appreciate and admire with me in that situation is that no matter how many times I got my heart broken, I suffered, and I told myself that I'm never going to give a guy a chance again. Eventually, I think that relationships are so beautiful, meaningful, and fulfilling. That's the most important thing in life for me, to have nurturing, fulfilling relationships with people, not just romantic ones, but you know, that I ended up like putting aside my trauma, my negative experience, my hurt, my heartbreak. It became irrelevant to me, and it didn't prevent me from venturing. And of course, it's a risk. It's always a risk, especially when you're dating someone, when you're allowing another human being in your life, in your intimacy, you're sharing stuff with them, you're literally devoting your time, your energy, your money, so many things you're devoting to that person. So obviously it's a risk. You don't know what you're going to get in return, and you can't control. There is never a guarantee. No matter how much in love you are with someone, there is no guarantee how things are going to pan out. They might stop loving you, you might stop loving them, or there might be so many issues, challenges that crop up, financial difficulties, health issues, children issues, in-laws issues. I don't know, all kinds of conflicts, misunderstandings might crop up. So there is never like a foolproof scenario where you have guarantee that you're going to be happy ever after. Having said that, when you meet the right person, you just feel like it's worth it. You're willing to take that risk. You're willing to like go, it's as if you're going skydiving. For me, being in love and choosing someone is like going skydiving. You have to trust, you have to believe that it's going to worth it, and you're going to land. There is always a risk. Nothing is, like I said, life itself is a risk. To be alive is a risk, because anything can happen, good and bad. So my point is, I was speaking about vulnerability. Yeah, on my side, I really appreciate that despite having that vulnerability, I do acknowledge that vulnerability. I don't deny it. I think that people who deny that they are weak, that they are struggling, those people are the people who need help the most. But I, for my part, I always try to be as honest with myself and others as possible. And I've never claimed that I'm this strong, invincible, like totally, like I have my life totally in control. It's not true. And yes, when a man is vulnerable with you, that's very beautiful. It seems that guys amidst themselves, like in their own circle of males, They seem to like they have to always be like this macho man, like they can't show vulnerability, they can't cry, they can't like, you have to man up all the time. Anyways, that's just my perception, it's not like the Bible. But once, like, I went on a trip abroad recently, and I had this friend in the trip, a guy. Well, he was not a friend, but let's just say that I knew him. And then we had a kind of bond going on, very pleasant dynamic. We were not dating, we were not flirting, but it was just like very friendly. And then at some point something happened, like he had a bit of responsibility in the group. Then something happened and he was quite disturbed. And he came up to me, like his eyes were really glistening with tears. He looked like he was disturbed. And he came up to me in all the group. He wanted to confide in me. And I took that like as an honor. For me, like, he's not that close to me, but he chose, like, I mean, he's a man, like, he's really a grown up man. And he wanted to share his vulnerability. He acknowledged that he was struggling, he was upset by what someone had said, and he was having a bit of a hard time. So for me, I really like it when a guy chooses to be vulnerable. For me, that's a huge compliment. I would say to all the men out there, like, if you think that women are going to be turned off by your vulnerability, then that's not true. That's not true, because the right person will never be turned off by your vulnerability. We all have vulnerabilities, and a relationship cannot function, cannot deepen, cannot evolve if you are never going to reveal your inner self, your true self. If you're always going to calculate and be cold and be like, trying to deal with it like it's a business deal, it's never going to work out. In fact, I believe that the most beautiful thing in a romantic relationship or in a marriage is precisely the fact that you allow all of your wounds to be out there in the open. Well, it's not like you're obliged to reveal all of your dark secrets and all of your stuff, your trauma to the other person, but it comes naturally, because, see, love is about sharing the good and the bad. And when you are close to someone, things just happen organically. You don't have to like go out of your way to think like, okay, can I share this, can I not share this? It just happens organically. Like I shared with you, for me, like, if I envision myself in an ideal relationship, I would see that both of us, we have stuff going on, we have hard days, we have times where we doubt ourselves, times where we just want to confide in each other. I see that that's so, it's probably my favorite part of the entire relationship, right? So just let me know if you have any thoughts or comments about what you believe, like vulnerability in relationships, not just in connection with men, but are you the type of person who can be vulnerable with someone again after having had your heart broken a million of times? Do you think it's important to be vulnerable? How do you think that we can be vulnerable with each other?